Good morning and welcome to the breakfast news on Rajya Sabha television, and in the next 30 minutes you will get your daily morning dose of top stories from India and across the globe. My name is Aishwarya and these are the headlines. Winter session dates to be decided soon. Government clarifies opposition wrong in alleging betrayal of constitutional mandate. Session has been held in December in the past as well. Government grants infrastructure status to logistics sector, aim to enable industry access cheaper finances to develop industrial parks, cold chains and warehouses. Nomination for the first phase of Gujarat elections over. BJP president appeals for rejecting casteist and dynastic politics during campaign. Congress denies a rift with Hardik Patel group over ticket distribution. After 37 years rule, Robert Mugabe resigns as president. Jubilation across Zimbabwe after the announcement. ZANU-PF party says former vice president will be the successor. And India's impressive show at the Women's Youth World Boxing Championship. Neetu Akushita, Shashi Chopra and Jyoti Gulia enter quarter-finals. First up, an update on the winter session of Parliament, and the ruling BJP and the opposition Congress have been engaged in angry exchanges over the timing and duration of the winter session of Parliament. Now, the government has clarified that the Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs will soon decide the dates for the session. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Anand Kumar said that the session will take place in the month of December.
The BJP and the Congress on Tuesday expressed differences over dates of the upcoming winter session of Parliament. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Anand Kumar insisted that the government is committed to hold the session. Taking to Twitter, he said the session will take place next month and the BJP is always committed to parliamentary procedures in letter and spirit.
We are committed to hold winter session. It will be a normal session, and Congress, because it has no other issue, it is unnecessarily raising this bogey.
The Congress alleged that the government was delaying the session to prevent the opposition from raising pertinent questions.
जिस तरह से नवंबर में शीतकाल सेशन को स्किप किया गया और कोई वजह नहीं बताई गई।
ये कोई नई बात है क्या? मैं पूछूंगा, क्या कांग्रेस के लोगों को प्रचार नहीं करना है क्या? आप बता दें। अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी के लोग ये पब्लिकली घोषणा करें कि हमारे अध्यक्षा वर्तमान, हमारे भावी अध्यक्ष, हमारे सारे नेता इस शीतकालीन सत्र में प्रामाणिकता से सुबह से शाम तक बैठेंगे और उनको चुनाव प्रचार करने के लिए नहीं जाना है, तो सरकार गंभीरता से विचार करे।
The winter session usually begins in November and ends after 4 weeks. While the Constitution doesn't specify how many times should Parliament meet in a year, it does state that the gap between two sessions should not exceed 6 months. Technically, the government has time till February to call a session, 6 months from August when the monsoon session ended. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And now our special segment on upcoming Gujarat Assembly polls. Well, nominations for the first phase of Gujarat Assembly polls has ended and 377 candidates from various parties have so far filed their nominations for the election to 89 seats on 9th of December. Nominations for the second phase have started on Monday and will be filed till 27th of November. Now, polling for the two-phase elections for the 182 seats will be held on 9th and 14th of December, and votes will be counted on 18th of December. Meanwhile, BJP President Amit Shah has said that this election was not just a fight between two parties, but a battle between the casteist politics and the dynastic rule of the Congress and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's developmental politics. Addressing a rally in Bhavnagar, he took a jibe at Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi, stating that he was visiting Gujarat like it was a tourist spot. Shah further claimed that the UPA government had done nothing for Gujarat. During his address, he also questioned what the Congress did for Gujarat when it was in power for 10 years, as opposed to Narendra Modi, who gave the state the bullet train, the Ro-Ro ferry service and also an international airport.
कांग्रेस जिस तरह से राज्य में जातिवाद की राजनीति कर रही है, पूरे चुनाव का मुद्दा विकास के मुद्दे से भटकाकर जातिवाद की ओर ले जाने का प्रयास कर रही है, उससे जनता की नाराजगी स्पष्ट रूप से दिखाई पड़ती है। अगले सभी रिकॉर्ड तोड़कर भारतीय जनता पार्टी श्री विजय रूपाणी और नितिन पटेल के नेतृत्व में और नरेंद्र भाई के नेतृत्व में 150 सीटों से ज्यादा सीटें जीतकर एक रिकॉर्ड बनाए।
News from the Congress's camp, and the party has replaced 5 out of the 90 candidates it has announced so far for the Gujarat polls scheduled next month. The candidates have been replaced for Junagadh, Bharuch, Kamraj, Varacha Road and Botad. The party has also denied any rift with Hardik Patel-led PAS. After the party released its first list on Sunday, there were protests held over the choice of nominees. 2 tickets were given to PAS as against their demand for 20.
कांग्रेस पर तो कोई दबाव नहीं डाला है। कांग्रेस समझदारी के साथ एनसीपी के साथ, छोटू भाई वसावा के साथ, जिग्नेश भाई मेवाणी के साथ, पास के साथ और अल्पेश ठाकुर तो कांग्रेस में मिल गए हैं, तो सबसे मिल के कांग्रेस राजनीति कर रही है।
News from UP, and the first phase of voting for the civic polls in UP's 24 districts has begun. Polling is being held for 5 municipal corporations, 71 Nagar Palika Parishads and 154 Nagar Panchayats. The districts going to polls in the first phase include Shamli, Meerut, Hapur, Kasganj, Agra, Kanpur and Ghaziabad. Over 1 crore voters are eligible to exercise their franchise for 230 local bodies in the first phase. The remaining 2 phases will be held on 26th and 29th of November, and the counting of votes for all the phases will take place on 1st of December. On to the other top story of the day. The government has conferred infrastructure sector status to the logistics sector. In a tweet, Economic Affairs Secretary Subhash Chandra Garg has said that the decision will help logistics sector access longer-term finance on better financing terms. Logistics include industrial parks, warehouses, cold storages and transportation. In 2017, India's logistics performance improved from 54 to 35 under World Bank Logistics Performance Index. The government expects the Indian logistics sector to grow to $360 billion by 2032 from the current $115 billion. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu inaugurated the 11th Indian Fisheries and Agriculture Forum in Kochi on Tuesday. Addressing a gathering, he laid stress on promoting scientific and technological research to make fishing more profitable. India supplies about 6.3% of the output in the global fish market. The Vice President said that the role of middlemen should be reduced to ensure that economic benefits from fishing and aquaculture reach fishermen. The Vice President also felt that fish farmers could be better served by making all available technologies accessible to them. He also informed the audience that the government has set for itself a goal of doubling the incomes of fish farmers.
The producer is not getting adequate this thing, and the consumer is getting taking it at a higher price. And in between, yes, there should be scope for business, definitely. Nothing wrong in business. But at the same time, the producer, the fishermen, the people who toil, who risk their lives also sometimes, who put a lot of hardship and labor, they should also get adequate price for their producers.
And while in Kochi, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also met around 40 differently abled children from the NGO Center for Empowerment and Enrichment. They met the Vice President at the Kochi Circuit House. Naidu said that every child has a special ability and should be nurtured in a way that it helps them to lead a dignified life.
In one time, whatever it is, of his motherland.
And Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan on Tuesday paid a rich tribute to the founder of Swadeshi Jagran Manch, Dattopant Thengadi, on his 98th birthday. On the occasion, Mahajan urged Indian youth to study the works and life of Thengadi, who played a pivotal role for the rights of farmers and workers. The Lok Sabha Speaker recalled her long association with Thengadi and said that the RSS stalwart had long stints in trade unions linked to various political ideologies before he founded Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh in 1955.
अध्ययन करते करते पूरा मार्क्सिज्म पढ़ा, पूरा समझ लिया कि श्रमिकों का संगठन कैसे होता, क्या होता, ये समझने के बाद फिर उन्होंने भारतीय मजदूर संघ की स्थापना की है.
Now, a soldier and 3 Pakistani Lashkar-e-Toiba militants were killed on Tuesday in 2 gunfights in Jammu and Kashmir's Kupwara district. An encounter broke out after security forces launched a search operation following information about the presence of terrorists at Mahajan in Handwara area. The fire exchange lasted for over an hour, in which 3 terrorists were gunned down. 3 AK-47s and some ammunition were also recovered from the militants. And in another encounter on Tuesday afternoon, a soldier was killed and 2 Jawans were injured after militants opened fire on security forces in Zirhama in the Tregam area of the district.
As per drill, the terrorists were asked to come out and surrender, but they preferred to open up and they fired on the search parties. The fire was retaliated and the encounter continued for about one hour or 1.5 hours. And 3 unidentified Pakistani militants affiliated with Lashkar-e-Toiba was eliminated.
In Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Does India face a kind of a double whammy? 62% of the deaths which are on account of the non-communicable diseases, and then you also have infectious diseases.
This has been a wake-up call actually. In fact, it's a triple burden because we also have the third burden of injuries.
Now that since this report has come out with different data, so does that also send out a message that every state needs to have a different policy?
Now every state government is probably going to look at their report and say, okay, now for next year's planning, where do I need to allocate resources?
How are you really going to expand the services, bring out the affordability? How do you do that when you don't have money?
We need to see a progressive increase in health spending every year. That's the only way that things can get better.
How is the state-level disease burden report a wake-up call for the Indian health sector? Watch To The Point with the Director General of Indian Council of Medical Research, Soumya Swaminathan, only on Rajya Sabha television. Ustad Bismillah Khan, the legendary maestro who brought Shehnai to the center stage of Indian classical music in 1937. With his heart-touching rendering of Rag Rafi, Ustad mesmerized millions of hearts on the eve of the First Republic Day. But most significant was when India achieved independence, and Bismillah Khan performed from the ramparts of the Red Fort on 15th August 1947. Ustad Bismillah Khan was awarded India's highest civilian award, Bharat Ratna.
The story we thought we knew. The story of magnificence. The the story of bloody battles, of those who ruled and those who left their footprints. The story charting the course of our past. Talking History on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back after the break. Now, the Supreme Court has deferred a hearing on the Rohingya deportation case to 5th of December. A three-judge bench led by Chief Justice Deepak Mishra on Tuesday said that the role of the state in the matter has to be multi-pronged. The court observed that a balance has to be struck between national interest and human rights as the issue involved national security, economic interests and humanity. Now, calling the refugee crisis an extraordinary situation in its last hearing on the 13th of October, the Apex Court said that it will give the matter a holistic hearing on 21st of November. Two Rohingya immigrants, Mohammad Salimullah and Mohammad Shakir, filed the petition opposing the centre's decision to deport over 40,000 refugees from India. And India and Russia have agreed to implement the General Declaration for visa-free entry of the crew of chartered and scheduled flights between the two nations. A Home Ministry official said that the officials of the two nations signed an agreement to this effect. Now, it will facilitate a visa-free entry, stay and exit of the aircraft crew of the designated airlines, as well as other aircraft companies operating chartered and special flights. 1,200 scheduled flights and about 1,000 Russian chartered flights fly between India and Russia every year. And our top international focus, Robert Mugabe has resigned as Zimbabwe's president after 37 years of rule, finally succumbing to the pressure of a military takeover and the humiliation of impeachment. The announcement came minutes into a joint session of the Zimbabwean parliament, which was convened to begin impeachment proceedings against Mugabe. Now, as the speaker read out a letter from Mugabe, lawmakers broke out in thunderous applause. In the streets outside as well, crowds erupted in rapturous celebrations, dancing and cheering in joy. Meanwhile, ZANU-PF party has said that former Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa will be Mugabe's successor. It was Mnangagwa's firing by Mugabe that had precipitated the crisis, with the military taking over capital Harare and putting Mugabe under house arrest. Mugabe's resignation marks the end of an era in Zimbabwe. He ruled the country with an iron fist for almost 4 decades and is the only leader that the nation has known since it achieved independence from Britain in 1980. Zimbabwe's military chief has urged restraint after Mugabe's resignation.
Well, this is a very big moment. We are so excited that finally we are taking off as a country. We fought for a long time, 37 years of disappointment, 37 years of falsehoods, 37 years of dictatorship. All of a sudden, it has come in handy and we must have a fresh beginning, a new start.
The country feels very, very relieved indeed. I mean, here's a man who has done so much for this country. And we are hoping that really this development gives him an opportunity to rest.
Against the backdrop of the latest developments in our country, your defense and security services would want to appeal to all Zimbabweans across the political divide to exercise maximum restraint and observe law and order to the fullest. Our founded character and tradition as a peaceful and law-abiding nation must now show in practical terms through unconditional observance of the law.
And a day after Donald Trump placed North Korea back on the list of a state sponsor of terrorism, US unveiled new economic sanctions on Tuesday targeting North Korean shipping and Chinese traders who are doing business with Pyongyang. The United States has designated North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism 9 years after it was removed from the list. And Russian President Vladimir Putin launched a major new push to end the war in Syria after an unannounced visit by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to Russia. Putin met Assad on Monday evening in the Russian Black Sea resort of Sochi, where the two leaders held talks on the future of Syria. Now, Putin in the meeting stressed on the need to move from military operations to the search for a political solution to Syrian conflict. Putin told Assad that the military campaign was wrapping up, but there was still a long way to go. The meeting comes ahead of talks between the Assad's allies, Russia and Iran, and rebel backer Turkey. Russia is actively trying to build an international consensus around a peace deal for Syria over 2 years after Moscow began a military intervention that turned the tide of the conflict in Assad's favor. After the meeting, Russian President Vladimir Putin also spoke to US President Donald Trump, and the two leaders stressed on the importance of a UN-led peace process in resolving the civil war. Putin also spoke to Emir of Qatar about a resolution to the conflict.
Последующего, после разгрома террористов, мирного политического урегулирования, долгосрочного урегулирования ситуации в Сирии. Я очень хотел бы обсудить с вами основные принципы организации политического процесса.
أأمل بأن تنجح روسيا في تثبيت ما تقوله دائما منذ بداية الأزمة، هو عدم التدخل الخارجي في أي عمل سياسي في سوريا، وإنما فقط دعمه من الخارج.
We had a great call with President Putin. We're talking about peace in Syria, very important. We're talking about North Korea. We had a call that lasted almost an hour and a half. We just put out a release on the call, but we're talking very strongly about bringing peace to Syria.
All right, let's get you some more international news now. Here is the World Wrap. A suicide bomber killed at least 50 people in the northeastern Nigeria in an attack on a mosque. The bombing in Mubi in Adamawa state was one of the deadliest in Nigeria since President Muhammadu Buhari came to power in 2015. It brought to at least 178 the number of people killed this year. There was no immediate claim of responsibility, but the attack bore the hallmarks of a faction of Islamist militant group Boko Haram. The US military has said that airstrikes killed more than 100 militants in Somalia on Tuesday and hit Islamic State fighters in Libya days earlier. US African Command said that the airstrike in Somalia targeted an Al-Shabaab camp about 125 miles northwest of capital Mogadishu, killing more than 100. This is the largest number of reported deaths from a single US airstrike in Somalia since the Trump administration approved expanded military operations against the group. Pakistani Judicial Board will decide today whether to extend JUD chief and the 2008 Mumbai attack mastermind Hafiz Saeed house arrest or not. A petition has been filed by Saeed in the court challenging the 24th of October order of the Punjab's Home Department to extend his detention for another 1 month under a public safety law. On 31st of January, Saeed and his 4 aides were detained by the Punjab government for 90 days under the Anti-Terrorism Act. However, the last 2 extensions to his detention were made on the public safety law. Let's get you all the sporting action now. And ace Indian boxers Naidu, Ankushita Boro and Shashi Chopra as well as Jyoti Gulia have entered the quarterfinals of the ongoing AIBA Women's Youth World Boxing Championship in Guwahati. Balkan Youth International Championship gold medalist and the reigning national champion Naidu beat Bulgaria's Emimari Todorova in the 48 kilogram category. Ankushita beat Turkey's Kagla Aluk in the 64 kilogram category, while Jyoti defeated Ukraine's Anastasia Linkiska in the 51 kilogram category. Meanwhile, in another match, Shashi Chopra got the better of second seed Taiwan's Lin Li Wenyi in the 57 kilogram category. And in the world of tennis, ace Indian player Yuki Bhamri has ended the second round of the Bengaluru Open tournament. Yuki beat compatriot Sriram N. Balaji 6-3, 6-2 in the first round encounter. Yuki Bhamri had clinched his first title of 2017 on the ATP Challenger Tour after registering win over compatriot Ramkumar Ramanathan in the Pune Challenger title. Bhamri will now face Pedro Martinez of Spain. An ace Indian shuttler, Parupalli Kashyap, has entered the main draw of the ongoing Hong Kong Open Super Series by scoring double wins in the qualifying round of the men's singles event. Kashyap beat Can Chao Yu of Chinese Taipei in the opening match. Kashyap also beat Lee Cheung Yiu of Hong Kong. He will now face Lee Dong Kyun of Korea. And in the mixed doubles, Satvik Sairaj Ranki Reddy and Ashwini Ponappa lost 18-21, 11-21 to Indonesia's Hafiz Faisal and Gloria Emmanuel Vidijaja. And that's it from me and my team in this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day ahead.